Nestled deep inside of Central Asia, there is a bizarre country with a bizarre history. To say the word strange is an understatement. Turkmenistan is just bizarre. Imagine, if you will, a country in which lies an entire ghost town made of white marble, adorned in gigantic statues made of solid gold. Every single motor vehicle is white. There is a marriage registry called the Palace of Happiness. There was an entire month named after the nation's flag. There is a statue of a giant pink book that will open up and read itself to you. There is the largest indoor Ferris wheel in the world, yet it never seems to operate. There is a building with the sole purpose of acting like a giant thermometer. A capital that has been called the White Marble City. And there's even a gateway to hell. Welcome to the bizarre world of Turkmenistan. If you like these types of history videos, make sure to hit like and subscribe, hit the bell icon and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a new upload, and consider joining my Discord, link in the bio, and in my channel's description. Sitting landlocked inside of Central Asia, Turkmenistan is the 35th most populous Asian country. It shares a short northwest border with Kazakhstan, a long northern border with Uzbekistan, a southwest border with Iran, and a southeast border with Afghanistan. Uzbekistan also borders it to the east, and it is bordered by the Caspian Sea to the west. The capital and most populous city is Ashgabat, located near the Iran border. It is one of 6 independent Turkic states and is the least populous of the Central Asian republics, while simultaneously being one of the most sparsely populated countries on the Asian continent, period. It covers 491,210 square kilometers, or 189,660 square miles of land. Its water surface area is 24,069 square kilometers, or 9,293 square miles of water coverage, giving it a percentile of 4.9% water. It has a total GDP of 186.11 billion US dollars, putting it 83rd on the world stage, with a per capita of 27,887 US dollars, putting it 74th. This gives it a nominal GDP of 89.05 billion US dollars, with a per capita of 13,334 US dollars. The current president at the time of recording is Serdar Berdimuhamedov. The government is a unitary presidential republic underneath a totalitarian hereditary dictatorship. The biggest religion in the country is without a doubt Islam, with 95.8% of the population identifying as Muslim. 3% consider themselves non-religious, and 1.1% consider themselves Christians. The biggest ethnic group is Turkmen, with 86.7% of the population identifying as such. 9.1% are Uzbeks, 1.6% are Russians, 1.2% are Balochs, and 1.3% are various assorted other ethnicities. Turkmen is the only official language. It boasts a total population of 7,057,841 people. It declared its independence from the USSR, which we'll get to later, on August 22nd, 1990, and was first recognized as an independent nation on December 26th, 1991. Turkmenistan's history began as a region that was populated by Indo-Iranians that was then annexed into the Achaemenid Empire. Lasting from 550 to 330 BC, this was the largest empire of its time. It stretched from the Balkans and Egypt in the west to the Indus Valley in the east, and it encompassed the Levant, Anatolia, Mesopotamia, and Cyprus. Over 1,000 years later, after its collapse, in the 8th century AD, Turkish tribes began moving from Mongolia, and they began to settle in a lot of Central Asia. One of these tribes, the Oghuz tribe, was part of a powerful confederation of tribes, and they would be identified as the precursor to the modern Turkmen ethnicity. And in the 10th century, members of the Oghuz tribe would accept Islam as their religion and would be donned the Turkmen. In 1037, Tughril would found the Seljuk Empire. You may have heard about these guys from reading about the Crusades as the Seljuk Turks. In 1040, modern-day Turkmenistan and the Turkmen people would come underneath the domination of the Seljuk Empire. Prior to this, the Turkmen were a nomadic people who lived a nomadic lifestyle. They would travel in yurts, and they would never stay in one place for a long time. They were wandering tribes. They were easily the most aggressive of the Turkic tribes, though, as they were the ones that were most willing to fight. This didn't help them much under the Seljuk Empire's rule. Members of the Oghuz tribe, however, did play an important role in spreading Turkish people and Turkish culture when they migrated to places like modern-day Azerbaijan. However, in the 12th century, Turkic tribes and the Turkmen overthrew the Seljuk Empire. This is a sort of national pride moment for the people of Turkmenistan. It's a very important part of their history that is referenced a lot in their culture. That was until the 12th century, where Genghis Khan showed up to ruin everybody's fun. All you need to know about the Mongol Empire is that it expanded rapidly, it drove a lot of north-living Turkmens southwards, and then it broke. The 16th and 18th centuries would then be overseen by a lot of infighting between various formations of tribes and confederations that would come and go. The individual tribes refused to unify because they were terrified of their neighbors. However, by this time, most tribes were underneath the control of the Uzbek Khanate. Two primary Khanates ruled the area, including the Khanate of Khiva and the Khanate of Bukhara. Now, even though the Uzbeks ruled all these Khanates, the Turkmen were still very important assets to the nations, because the Turkmen were renowned for their aggression and their abilities at fighting. So what we had here were Uzbek Khanates had primarily militaries fielding Turkmen soldiers. Now, one of these tribes, the Yomut, would begin committing raids and attacks throughout the 19th century. This would ultimately lead to this tribe's dispersal by the Uzbek rulers. In 1855, the Turkic tribe of Teke, underneath the leadership of Gulshit Khan, would lead a decisive battle that would defeat an invading army from the Khanate of Khiva. And in 1861, they would repel the Persian invasion led by Nasruddin Shah. This cemented the Turkmen as the main political power at the head of the Khiva Khanate. The Turkmen quickly gained a reputation around this time for their involvement in the Central Asian slave trade, unfortunately. The 19th century would see the Russians invade, landing their forces at Krasnovodsk, the Caspian Sea base of the Turkmen. Krasnovodsk, fun fact, is now called Turkmenbashi. The Russians would utterly tear apart the Uzbek Khanates. However, they would actually be defeated by the Teke Turkmen in 1879. This was only their first attempt to capture the region, however, as in 1881, the Battle of Göktepe saw the last of Turkic resistance crushed. Soon thereafter, Turkmenistan, along with the nearby Uzbek territories, was then annexed proper into the Russian Empire. In 1916, an anti-conscription revolt erupted across Central Asia, as most areas in the region were against the Russian Empire's involvement in World War I. Turkmenistan would actually be one of the rare areas of Russia that would be spared from the bloody 1917 revolution. Them, along with groups of Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and Uzbeks, would all revolt against communist rule, participating in the Basmaki Rebellion. The former Tsarist province of Transcaspia was turned into the Turkmen Oblast and was renamed the Turkmen Soviet Socialist Republic in 1924. By the 1930s, the Soviets had quickly changed the region. introducing farming and organized civilized lifestyle that utterly destroyed whatever remained of the nomadic culture that the Turkmen previously had. Complete and total political control of the region was assumed from Moscow directly. This wouldn't be a video featuring the Soviet Union if there wasn't some shady high casualty event that was completely not reported on by the government or covered up outright. On October 6, 1948, a 7.3% surface wave magnitude earthquake hit Ashgabat. This was a very large, very devastating earthquake with a Mercalli intensity rating of X, or extreme. This event was barely covered, if at all, by the Soviet media at the time, who was very hush-hush about what happened, which tells me they were probably doing something that may have triggered it. Said media ban also preempted relief efforts and did not allow the government to allocate funds and finances to respond to the event adequately. It struck at 1:12 a.m. and lasted only 10 seconds with 2 huge shocks that reduced the entire city to rubble. All but 3 brick buildings collapsed. Trains were derailed, and shocks were felt in entire villages away. There was damage and casualties as far away as Daragaz in Iran. There were surface ruptures 25 kilometers away on all sides of the city, and no one can agree on the exact amount of casualties there were, because the Soviet Union makes studying history hard. The only thing that remains consistent is that 10% of the Turkmen SSR's population died in this earthquake, if that's what it even really was. Dmitry Navilkin was a Soviet officer who was present in the Central Communist Committee building of the Turkmenistan's Communist Party. He was present for all of this, and he had this to say about what he saw. Quote, "When I came to my senses, I realized that I was still standing at the open window and holding on to the frame, and outside the window there was something incredible. Impossible. Instead of a dark, transparent, starry night, there was an impenetrable milky white wall in front of me, and behind it, terrible groans, screams, and cries for help. In a few seconds, the entire old clay, adobe city was destroyed. In place of the house, a terrible white veil of dust shot up into the air, hiding everything." Ivan Yefimовich Petrov, the commander of the Turkestan military district, learned about the disaster in Ashgabat when a radiogram reached him in Tashkent. That night, he sent to Moscow the commander-in-chief of the ground forces, Marshal Ivan Konev, a message saying the following. On the night of October 5 to 6, a strong earthquake occurred in Ashgabat. Communication with Ashgabat is lost. According to fragmentary data, there is severe destruction and casualties. At 9:30 a.m. local time, I will fly to the scene. I'll give you the details. General Petrov called in military units from neighboring garrisons. 4 divisions were transferred to the city to deal with the earthquake. The first trucks with bread from military bakeries began to drive around the city, and electricity wasn't restored until 6 days after. All of the hospitals in Ashgabat were destroyed. They were completely leveled. So medical treatment had to be rendered to people on the municipal parade ground underneath the trees. A little boy by the name of Supamarat Niyazov lost his mother, Gurbinzoltan Ije, in this earthquake. His father, Atamriat Niyazov, was killed during World War II, and the rest of his family had also died in this earthquake, leaving him an orphan. Sir Pomerat will come back later. Oh, he will come back later. The Turkmen Soviet Socialist Republic lived a fairly uneventful existence afterwards, kind of serving its economic role in the Soviet Union throughout most of its tenure. So other than the earthquake, they didn't have anything like Trebin or forced Zina. Not even the rapid liberalization movement in the 1980s really shook the country all that much. They just had the introduction of glasnost and kind of left it at that. It was around this time that a certain Supamarat Niyazov rose through the ranks to become the leader of the Communist Party in Turkmenistan. He became the first secretary of the Turkmen Communist Party in 1985. He stayed in this position until 1991, where he supported a Soviet-led coup that utterly failed to try to rebuild the Soviet Union. I wouldn't even call this a serious coup attempt. I would call it more or less the equivalent of trying to hold together a house of cards with duct tape. He wanted to preserve the Soviet Union, as the Turkmenistan Republic in particular benefited greatly underneath its rule. Side note and fun fact, this resulted in a single day where Kazakhstan by itself was just the entirety of the USSR for 24 hours. Though Turkmenistan had declared its independence on August 22nd, 1990, Niyazov wasn't really one to properly leave the USSR until the USSR made that decision for him and fell apart in 1991, forcing Turkmenistan to gain recognition in October of 1991, albeit reluctantly. Turkmenistan then gained its status as an independent nation, and its first president was Surpamarat Niyazov. So there's a lot of pictures of Niyazov, and while scrolling through them, I found him in a lot of photos being presented alongside Vladimir Putin, probably from some meeting they had. And I just gotta point out that, like, in a lot of them, Putin looks like he just really doesn't want to be there. Putin just looks like he's being held hostage. Let's learn more about this man. Let's learn about his early life. Niyazov was born on the 19th of February, 1940, in Kipchak, just outside of Ashgabat, in the Turkmen SSR. And he was an influential member of the Tek tribe of Turkmens. According to his biography, his father, Atamurat Niyazov, died in World War II fighting against the Germans in the Red Army. Other sources contend this and say that he avoided fighting and was therefore sentenced to military court. It's a mess. His mother and his two brothers were killed in the Ashgabat earthquake, as we went over earlier. In 1992, the very first Turkmenistani presidential election featured Niyazov as the sole candidate and was chosen as the country's first popularly elected president. 1 year later, in 1993, he gave himself a new name, Turkmenbashi, meaning leader of all Turkmen. And if you see this becoming the start of something wild, hold on to your pants, it gets crazier than that. In 1994, Niyazov's term was extended to 2002, so he could oversee a 10-year development plan. The official results showed that 99.9% of voters approved this proposal. Heck yeah, voting fraud. Niyazov became the president when Turkmenistan was transitioning from a Soviet republic to an independent state. So he was responsible for having to demolish all of the old regime and all of the communist policies and the communism model, the Soviet model of government. He steadily broke down the Soviet model of governments, which in many respects, Turkmenistan was really unsuited for. There was outside concern, in fact, about press freedom and, to a lesser extent, religious rights of minority religious groups. And what was unique about Turkmenistan's case is that Turkmenistan didn't really have a well-known cultural background. Again, all of these people had been wandering nomads for a very long time, and so Niyazov had to work to kind of create a sort of cultural renaissance, if you will, where people would remember their cultural background and that they were distinct from being just Russians. But instead of reaching towards any historical backgrounds or any things of cultural significance, he took things personally, and he created a book, which is an autobiography called the Runama, meaning Book of the Soul. And this was his personal autobiography, and it was meant to guide the Turkmen people with his ideas and to try to promote native culture. And by extension, it also heavily prohibited foreign culture. Runama, or the Ruhnama, translated into English as Book of the Soul or Book of the Spirit,
is a 2-volume work written by Supamurat Niyazov and is about philosophical interplay between ethics and the future success of states. Where in this book, the particular in the case study is Turkmenistan, which is the modern version of the nation state of the Seljuk Empire. Or so it says. It's really just a whole bunch of state propaganda. This book started out as a single written piece, but would become more and more invasive in Turkmen's lives as Niyazov's presidency went on. He would then go about introducing more policies to give Turkmenistan more of its own sort of distinct culture. He introduced a new Latin-based Turkmen alphabet to replace the Russian Cyrillic, and despite he emphasizing a need to move from central planning to a market economy and a full democracy during his reign, yeah, you can forget about doing either of that. He basically just became a dictator. In fact, in 1999, on the 28th of December, the parliament declared Niyazov president for life. So, yeah. Oh, in case you were wondering, the parliamentary elections that were held prior, yeah, every single candidate was handpicked by him. So now our Turkmenbashi has found himself as president of the country with the second largest oil reserves in any of the former Soviet Union states. In the years following independence, Turkmenistan invested heavily in plants and machinery in an attempt to convert it from being primarily a supplier of petroleum to a more advanced economy. And such investments included oil refineries, a polyethylene plant, and this was all Niyazov's doing. In fact, in a Rossiyskaya Gazeta newspaper, Niyazov claimed that Turkmenistan was able to, quote, process 85% of its domestic output, a number that is agreed to be heavily inflated. Turkmenistan's other primary resources, cotton and grain, didn't really change all that much. Niyazov continued the old practice of demanding yearly quotas in agricultural output, and then blaming his deputy ministers, when quotas were not met. At one point during his presidency, Turkmenbashi introduced the practice of Melon Day, a harvest festival celebrated on the second Sunday of August, which is celebrating his favorite food, the melon. In 2005, Niyazov banned the use of lip syncing at public In 2005, Niyazov banned the use of lip syncing at public concerts, as well as sound recordings at, quote, musical performances on state holidays, in broadcasts by Turkmen television channels, at all cultural events organized by the state, in places of mass assembly, and at weddings and celebrations organized by the public, citing a negative effect on the development of musical arts incurred by the use of recorded music. You might wake up some of your friends or parents at night when you're watching this video, guys. Niyazov banished dogs from the capital Ashgabat because of their unappealing odor, and banned citizens from owning more than one dog or cat. I knew he did this stuff already, guys. It's just me trying to read this with a straight face. According to the Ashgabat correspondent of Turkmenistan, RU, right-hand drive imported cars converted to left-hand drive were banned due to a perceived increased risk of accidents. Okay. Niyazov declared Turkmenistan a neutral state and said that the country would not participate in any UN peacekeeping operations. Niyazov wrote the Runama, meaning Book of the Soul, we went over this, and made it mandatory in all schools, in public offices, and for obtaining a driver's license, excerpts from Runama were on your driver's test. So if you didn't read the book, you weren't allowed to drive. Oh, but ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, he went one step further than that. He built a statue of Runama. Yes, he built a statue of the book that would open up every night and play a passage from Runama for the civilians to hear. And thanks to him, you can today, like you can do this today, you can take a flight to Turkmenbashi. You can arrive at the Turkmenbashi Airport. And you can drive down the Turkmenbashi Highway and stay at the Turkmenbashi Hotel. And I don't know, maybe buy a hat with Turkmenbashi's name on it, or I don't know, wash it down with some beverage called Turkmenbashi. He was very popular at naming things. And I don't mean like he was liked by the people. His name was very popular. In fact, he abolished the Turkmen word for bread. And what do you think he replaced it with? Do you think he replaced it with his name? Did you replace it with his name? No, he named bread Gurban Zoltan. He named bread after his mom, after his mother. Weird? Yes. But I don't know, it's oddly charming for a dictator. I guess we can confirm that Niyazov was a mama's boy. And so he went on to then rename the months of the year. January became Turkmenbashi. So, yeah, he named the first month of the year after himself. February became Baydak, or flag. It's Turkmenistan's Flag Day is celebrated in February. March, Nowruz, the traditional Persian New Year, which is celebrated in March. He named April Gurban Zoltan. He named May Maksim Guli after a Turkmen poet considered by Niyazov as one of the greatest spiritual teachers of the Turkmen people. He named June Oguz after Oguz Khan, the legendary and semi-mythical founder of the Turkmen nation. Gokurt, which was formerly July, is the hero of the Gokurt Ata Turkmen epic. August became the Alp Arisen, the second leader of the Seljuk Empire, and fought a war with the Byzantine Empire. He named September Runama after his book. And October is Garasilik, or Independence, which is, Turkmenistan's Independence Day. November became Sanjar, the last ruler of the Seljuk Empire, and December became Bitaralfik, the neutrality, because Turkmenistan was proclaimed a neutral country, and its Neutrality Day is celebrated in December. Let's continue with his strange decrees. After having to quit smoking in 1997 due to a heart surgery he had, he didn't want to be tempted to do it at all. So he banned smoking in all public places and ordered all government employees to follow suit so that he himself would not be tempted to continue smoking. He also banned chewing tobacco on Turkmen soil later on. So, yeah, this wasn't because he cared anything about the people. It's because, hey, I want to stop doing this, so I'm going to stop you from doing it, so I'm not tempted to do it. In 2001, he outlawed opera, ballet, circuses, and philharmonic orchestras for being decidedly un-Turkmen-like. Basically, opera, ballet, circuses, and orchestras were just too much not Turkmen for him. This is one of my absolute favorite ones, though. This is one of my absolute favorites. So Niyazov requested that a palace of ice, which is basically an indoor ice skating rink, be built near the capital in Ashgabat, so that those living, mind you, in a country that is entirely desert, could learn how to ice skate. But it gets even better than that, because in 2008, the rink was built, and it's now located near the new Turkmen State Medical University. But the thing that makes that even... The thing that makes that even funnier is that in March 2004, he fired doctors and specifically gymnastics instructors and replaced them with military conscripts. In 2004, he decreed that men should no longer wear long hair or beards because of the apparent association with Islamic extremism. You can't make this up. In March 2005, he ordered that all libraries be closed outside the capital. His reason, he stated, was that ordinary Turkmen didn't read anyway. He banned car radios because he considered them to be, and I quote, useless. along with along with banning car radios because he considered them to be useless. He also put very extreme pressure on people that were reporting on news outlets and media reporters. He banned news reporters and presenters from reporting or even mentioning of contagious diseases such as AIDS or cholera, and he banned news reporters and presenters from wearing makeup on television. According to some reports, he felt that presenters should, quote, appear natural, unquote, on screen. Although others allege that he was more eccentric with his reason, claiming that he said he found it... Others allege that the reason was more eccentric, claiming that he said he found it difficult to distinguish male anchors from female anchors. Niyazov also had a cult of personality. As we went over before, his name Turkmenbashi, meaning leader of all the Turkmen. But also, when each broadcast would begin, like say a news reporter went on television, it would have to begin with a pledge that the broadcaster's tongue would shrivel if he/she slanders the country, the flag, or Turkmenbashi. In 2005, he banned video games because they were too violent. Oh God, it's the modern warfare situation all over again. In 2005, he banned video games, like completely banned them because they were quote-unquote too violent for young Turkmens. In the same month, he also did something. He ordered I can't, this is the best one. This, in my opinion, is the best one. He ordered the country's oil minister to learn English in 6 months, or else be fired. In November of 2005, he ordered that doctors should swear an oath to him instead of the Hippocratic Oath, and ordered that all mountains and places in Turkmenistan be named after Turkmen heroes, poets, and leaders. He was a dictator. During his presidency, there was no freedom of the press, there was no freedom of speech. Any opposition to him was forbidden. Major opposition was imprisoned, institutionalized, deported, blah, 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 you know, dictator stuff. A silhouette of him was used as a logo on television broadcasts, which that's really ominous if you think about it. And a lot of his decrees, the population gained no benefit from him while he reveled in his country's wealth, essentially. He was obsessed with himself. His nickname Turkmenbashi, he renamed Krasnovodsk after his nickname Turkmenbashi. He renamed schools to Turkmenbashi. He renamed airports to Turkmenbashi. Streets in Ashgabat were renamed to Turkmenbashi. And he even named a meteorite. Yes, an actual meteorite. Turkmenbashi. Wouldn't you like to be Turkmenbashi too? Statues and portraits of him were just quite frankly placed everywhere in the country when he was alive. And in Ashgabat in particular, he erected a rotating $12 million golden statue of himself that would rotate so that it always faced the sun. It is a big monument / observation tower located in Ashgabat called the Neutrality Monument, though locally it is known as the Tripod. It was constructed by Turkish construction firm Polymex at a cost of $12 million. It was originally located in central Ashgabat, and it was one of the tallest buildings in the city, being actually taller than the presidential palace. It was topped by an illuminated 12-meter tall gold-plated statue of Niyazov, which rotated to always face the sun. And apparently you can go up inside of it, but like it's inaccessible to the public. There's like a museum inside of there or something, but no one has really been inside of it in a long time. You get up inside of it by inclined elevators built into the legs. It was dismantled in 2010 and was moved to the suburbs of the city's southern end, where it was reassembled, and it still stands there today.
This big golden statue was just one of the many things that Niyazov would end up building throughout his time as a dictator in Turkmenistan. And we are not done with crazy decrees. Mr. Turkmenbashi over here also made it his duty to give every single citizen a watch with a picture of him in the dial. I just like to imagine this guy just showed up to baby showers and is like, here, take this new watch. Some of his laws were on a bit more of the sinister side. In March 2005, he ordered the closure of all hospitals outside of Ashgabat, stating that if people are sick, they should, quote, come to Ashgabat. So yeah, just drive all the way to the capital for your monthly checkup. Now, by far his most bizarre one, now it wasn't like actually outlawed, but Turkmenbashi greatly discouraged gold teeth. Niyazov instead suggested that the Niyazov suggested that the populace chew on bones. Yes, Niyazov suggested that the populace chew on bones to strengthen their teeth and lessen the rate at which they fall out. He said, quote, I watched young dogs when I was young. They were given bones to gnaw to strengthen their teeth. Those of you whose teeth have fallen out did not chew on bones. This is my advice. This is my advice. He built many eccentric building projects, and each dictator that would come to the city of Ashgabat, then the country would just add more to it. Like, for instance, here's a giant thermometer that is just called a giant thermometer. As for Mr. Niyazov's other policies, Turkmenistan has the second largest oil reserves in all of the former Soviet Union. So he used central planning, such as state-controlled production and procurement and direct bank credits and low interest rates and all that stuff. Turkmenistan has the second largest oil reserves in the former Soviet Union, generating high revenue for Mr. Niyazov's pockets. And so, in the years following this independence, he invested in large projects, such as a massive pipeline, a gas pipeline, from the Korbeje field to Kortkoi in Iran. Most of the country's Victory in Europe Day, May 9th, was shaped by how Niyazov's father, his Red Army service, basically shaped how celebrations were celebrated. Turkmenistan under Niyazov put the emphasis on the country's sacrifice during World War II, as opposed to the way of patriotic pride as it was celebrated in, and still is, in places like Russia and so on. One of the first things that Niyazov did was abolish the death penalty. So, at the very least, he did that. Now, in January 2000, Niyazov did one of the most infamous things that he has done in the entirety of his tenure as a dictator in Turkmenistan. And that is opening the quote-unquote Walk of Health, which is a 36-kilometer or 22-mile-long concrete walkway that runs alongside the Kopetdag mountain range in southern Ashgabat. It's near the Turkmenistan-Iran border. And it was first constructed in 1999 with the intent of encouraging citizens to be healthy. It opened on the 2nd of January 2000, and until he died, they stopped doing this after he died, he required his ministers to walk the walkway once every year. He himself, of course, didn't do it. He would fly up to the top to meet them by helicopter. Apparently, allegedly, this was because he feared his own heart condition would render him unable to walk the entire length. The pathway was even expanded at one point, even. It was expanded an additional 16 miles in near 2000. And it was split into two sections: Leaders Trail, which is 8 kilometers, and Serdar Trail, which is 17 miles. And the beginning is marked by an archway in Serdar Health Park. And from the points where they'd start, the trail would run northwest. It still does. It runs northwest, and it terminates at the Kopetdag Highway, south of Nisa. And the second trail generally runs southeast and terminates at the Government Tribune Complex. As there are no trees at all in the mountain range to provide shade, so it is difficult to walk in its entirety, even though there are pavilions every kilometer or so for resting. At the very least, though, there are street lights on the trail, so it is illuminated at night. So, I mean, at least there's that. Mr. Niyazov would also crack down heavily on the internet. In May 2000, the government revoked all internet licenses except for the state-owned Turkmen Telecom. And in June 2001, all internet cafes were just shut down. And by 2005, there were 36,000 internet users in Turkmenistan, representing 0.7% of the population. So yeah, there's not a lot of internet there. And in 2004, 15,000 public health workers were dismissed. And this was like everybody. This was orderlies, school health, visitors, nurses, midwives. They were just all dismissed because he believed that the sick could come to the capital for treatment. So yeah. And he also went as far as to discontinue the pensions for the elderly. 1/3 had theirs discontinued, while oddly enough, another 200,000 had theirs just merely reduced. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs strongly denied that allegations that the pensions, resulted in the deaths of many elderly Turkmens. And they accused foreign media outlets of spreading deliberately perverted information on the issue. So, yeah. And he believed that the only books that people needed to read were the Quran and his own book, the Runama. Things got so bad that on the 25th of November, Niyazov's motorcade was fired upon at about 7 a.m. in downtown Ashgabat. It was an assassination attempt on him. He was traveling to his office from his official residence in Ashrabil, and he claimed it was an attempt at a coup. And as a result, as you'd expect, he used this to arrest thousands of suspected conspirators and members of their families, so on and so forth. He went through with all of this in 2002. He arrested and purged many foreign ministers. He purged Major Begnich Beknazarov of the Turkmen Ground Forces and Chief of the General Staff, Lieutenant General Serdar Karyal. The critics claim that the government staged this attempt, like that this was just entirely staged. There wasn't really an assassination attempt, but this is unsubstantiated. And then there was also a leaflet campaign in the capital of Ashgabat in 2004, the summer of 2004, where people were calling for the overthrow and trial of Niyazov. They were unable to stop the campaign, and the president responded by firing his interior minister and the director of the police academy on national television, like in front of everyone. He accused him of incompetence and declared that I cannot say that you had any great merits or did much to combat crime. And so as a result of this, he placed surveillance cameras at all major streets and sites in Turkmenistan. Now, like all human beings, Mr. Turkmenbashi was mortal, and on the afternoon of the 21st of December in 2006, President Supamurat Niyazov died of a sudden heart attack in the early morning hours at 1:10 local time at his residence, the Turkmenbashi Palace, at the age of 66. 1 month prior to his death, he publicly announced that he had been taking heart medication for the past few years for an unidentified cardiac condition. But now, there was an issue. Niyazov had no successor named, and according to the constitution, chairman of the assembly, Olzelgi Atyeo, the chairman of the assembly, would assume the presidency. However, vice president and minister of health took control of the country, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov. Now, the backstory behind this established man was that he was a former dentist before he became Minister of Health. But not only was he a dentist, he was Turkmenbashi's personal dentist. And considering what Mr. Turkmenbashi believed about teeth, we should be absolutely terrified. Mr. Gurbanguly won the 2007 presidential election, faced no meaningful opposition, and won by an overwhelming 89% of the vote. Yeah, something fishy is going on here. He had been the Minister of Health since 1997, and he was appointed in 2001 as one of several deputy chairmen of the Cabinet of Ministers. In this case, he was responsible for health and science and education and sports. In fact, in April 2004, he was one of the people that would be affected by Niyazov's policies, because Niyazov suspended Berdimuhamedov's salary for 3 months because healthcare workers were not being paid. I can't imagine as to why. He immediately took steps to reverse a lot of the more eccentric decisions made by Turkmenbashi. He allowed internet cafes again, he offered free and uncensored web app access, and it was completely open in Ashgabat. Compulsory education was extended from 9 to 10 years, and classes in sports and foreign languages were reintroduced into the curriculum. And he lifted the bans on opera, ballet, and orchestras, all of that. Officials who were non-ethnic Turkmen were allowed to work after they had been fired by Niyazov previously, and he restored the pensions of elderly people whose pensions Niyazov had slashed. So you might be thinking, great, this guy seems to be doing a lot of things, and he's working to undo this insane personality cult. Well, it became very obvious as to what he's doing is he was slowly getting rid of Niyazov's personality cult, yeah, but he's replaced it with his own. You see, one thing you need to learn about Berdi is that he loves horses. He loves horses a lot. The Akal Teke is his favorite breed of horse in particular. Enough for him to erect a giant statue of himself riding a golden horse atop a cliff made of white marble. And that's just one of many horse statues he made in the city. There were horses everywhere by the time he came in for presidency. Now, rather infamously, in January 2018, he ordered the impounding of black cars in the capital because he considered the color white to be lucky. The police seized dark-colored vehicles in Ashgabat, and their owners were told that they must pay to have them repainted silver or white. The capital, known as the City of White Marble, earned a Guinness World Record for having the highest concentration of white marble buildings under Muhamedov. Eventually, he would outlaw all colors of motor vehicles, allowing only white. So now if you go to Turkmenistan today, you will see just an endless sea of white cars. He has made it abundantly clear he has no plans to move towards Western-style democracy anytime in the future. So Freedom House has consistently rated Turkmenistan as one of the lowest freedom in the world ranking since the country's independence. In some years, it actually ranks worse than Eritrea and North Korea, but it's not far now. In 2017, it was ranked 178th, meaning it was just ahead of Eritrea and North Korea. Though there is internet, it's heavily censored, and satellite dishes have been removed by government officials. Now, in May 2013, he fell off of his horse during a race, and it was censored on TV. But it was leaked online, and it was even mocked in an episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver in 2019. And journalists that were leaving the country following the accident reported that their electronic devices were searched for traces of footage of the incident. Mr. Mohamedov was, of course, still declared the winner of the race. I wonder why.
At one point, rumors even started to circulate that Birdie had died for some reason, because I guess he had been out of the public eye for a long time. And so they compiled a video of him doing all these different things of like what the president was supposedly up to, including bowling, going to ranges, lifting weights, and driving donuts around the pit of hell. So this thing is called the Dravas crater, otherwise known as Hell's Gate. And it was caused in 1971 when a Soviet rig collapsed into the hull. It set it on fire, and it has been burning ever since. It's a natural gas deposit, so it will continuously burn. It is a tourist attraction there. If you ever get a visa to go to Turkmenistan, which you can't very easily, it's hard. The Marble City isn't the only world record they've broken. They actually have broken several. Among significant things in Turkmenistan's culture are these really nice traditional woven carpets. They're like traditionally hand woven. They're really intricate. They have a lot of these patterns. There's even part of this carpet, its design is on the Turkmenistan flag, if you look closely. It's a historic Turkmen tradition. These are called Turkmen rugs.
And they'll make them into like tablecloths, pillows, rugs, carpets, etc. It's really important to their culture. So important that there is a big carpet museum in Ashgabat, and there is a Ministry of Carpet, a government organization that oversees this tradition of carpet crafting. And inside said ministry, there is a huge Turkmen rug. It is the world's largest carpet. It is huge. It is hung on the wall. It is gigantic. It stretches from the floor to the ceiling of the museum. It is gigantic, and it was officially recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as being the Guinness record holder for the world's largest carpet, or world's largest rug.
Now, recently, Turkmenistan's leader has been succeeded by his son, Serdar Berdi Mohamedov, and this is a continuing story. So if you want to see more of this, hit like and subscribe. Consider joining my Discord, where you can actually catch country balls and battle them against each other. We're having a lot of fun there. There's also a history and politics discussions tab, so if you want to discuss politics in a free, non-toxic environment, then consider doing so. And I will do a lot more history videos like this. History is another one of my autistic obsessions that I had. So if you like this, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. This is the history of Turkmenistan and its bizarre dictatorships, or its bizarre dictators. See you guys next time. Peace, and good night if you're watching this at night. Bye.